This reason that the world is so troubled. Good thoughts are rare. People's minds have become twisted. Debauchery and drug abuse are rampant, and people subscribe to atheism. These are inevitable in the last stage of the cosmos and bespeak of the time at which we have arrived. The Creator cherishes all of the heavenly beings that exist, as well as all of the lives that are good and kind, and all of the glorious creations in the cosmos. So at the beginning of the destruction stage, he led a number of divine beings to the outermost plane of the cosmic body, known generally as that which is outside the divine realm, a place where there are no divine beings, and created Earth. But Earth hadn't the capacity to exist independently. It needed for there to be a corresponding cosmic structure with which it could form a circulatory system involving life and matter. For this reason, the Creator made a larger expanse outside of the Earth, which higher beings refer to as the three realms. Before the final time of salvation would arrive, no higher beings, however great, were to be allowed to enter this expanse without the Creator's permission. The expanse of the three realms comprises three major realms. The realm of desire, Yi, which is made up of the lives of this earth, including humankind. A second realm, the realm of likings, Se, which is above it, and a third realm further above, known as the realm without likings, Wu Se. Each successive realm is higher and more glorious than that below it, though none can compare to the divine realm or the many heavenly kingdoms still higher. The heaven that people normally refer to is in fact within either the realm of likings or the realm without likings within the three realms. Each of the three realms has 10 planes within it, making
out of work 2 years ago this week. Now the net number is under 1.6 million. We're also making the biggest investment ever in climate.
And thus, as the White House on Friday sent out a cheat sheet about job growth and cooling inflation, highlighting what it calls the overwhelming popularity of the president's economic agenda. But the Republican National Committee gives a less rosy assessment of Biden's 2 years. Writing on Friday, American workers are seeing their paychecks shrink, and families are paying more for gas and groceries. All this as scrutiny continues to grow over Biden's handling of classified documents. After dodging reporters' questions for a week, Biden on Thursday broke silence on the discovery of the files, but only to say he does not regret not telling the public earlier.
We immediately turned them over to the archives and the Justice Department. We're fully cooperating, looking forward to getting this resolved quickly. I think you're going to find there's nothing there. I have no regrets. I'm following what the lawyers have told me they want me to do. It's exactly what we're doing. There's no there. Thank you.
So he was basically employed by BHR partners during that timeline. Well, this is the timeline of the documents. The documents date back into the 2019 timeline, or, if you look at Joe Biden as vice president, 2008 to 2016, these documents have been at that residence at least from 2019, if the reports are correct. And that's at the same time that Hunter Biden was renting that residence, which is Joe Biden's home. He was paying Joe Biden $50,000 a month to stay at that house. So all of this ties him together there. Now, there's another concerning piece of information, and it has to do with a Chinese businessman, Patrick Ho, who also has ties to the Chinese military intelligence or the Chinese Communist Party. He was also associated with and very close to Hunter Biden during this period of time through the BHR lithium relationship. And then this can also tie in James Biden, President Biden's brother, James Biden, because in 2017, Patrick Ho was arrested in the United States, and the first person that he had called was James Biden to get him out of jail, according to Peter Schweitzer, the author of Red Handed. So all of this ties the Bidens closely to BHR, a Chinese lithium company.
Definitely quite concerning if those are to be true. And Rex, zooming in on the lobbying efforts, you and I have talked about TikTok before, right? And especially in terms of the National Defense Authorization Act, but it seems that TikTok lobbying efforts go beyond that. So tell us what you found.
Okay, real quickly, I want to bow tie the information with Hunter Biden because this all ties back to the Inflation Reduction Act and the Omnibus Bill. In the Inflation Reduction Act, there were $385 billion set aside, and the Omnibus Bill was $140 billion. So that's over $500 million set aside for green initiatives. Now, if you look at this, that's a lot of money. We can tie this back to Afghanistan and our withdrawal from Afghanistan because the Brookings Institute put together a report and they released it in August of 2022, stating that China's investment in lithium in Afghanistan was leading the world. And why is this important? Because we pulled out of Afghanistan and they have the world's largest lithium deposits. So we pulled out of Afghanistan at a time we're migrating to green energy, yet we left the world's largest lithium deposits open and then allowed the Taliban to take control of that, who they have close ties to China. Now China is coming into Afghanistan, and they're going to be the leaders at mining that lithium out of Afghanistan. That in and itself is another national security threat that we need to be aware of as well. So getting to ByteDance, again, this is tied to China's hybrid warfare against the West. ACG, American Continental Group, was hired by ByteDance, the developers of TikTok. ACG's, one of their founders is David Urban. He's a former presidential advisor to Trump and a former CNN host. Now, go figure, how does a CNN host, as liberal as they are, have ties to Donald Trump? So that's, Are
being handled. Are they going to call President Biden's attorneys? We'll get to their names in a second, which is even more problematic. Are they going to put them in the grand jury room? Are they going to put the campaign staffers in the grand jury room? What about Hunter Biden? What about the logs that show, the receipts that show who was renting that house and who was receiving money and where the money was coming from? All of these people are witnesses. And the first thing I would do as a federal prosecutor is put all of them in a grand jury immediately. And then subpoena through the grand jury every document, which we talked about in last week's episode, that the Oversight Committee should get. This grand jury should be subpoenaing every banking record of Hunter Biden's related to those properties and Joe Biden, every record showing transactions of companies involved, whether it's the CCP or otherwise, with those properties. And also they should be subpoenaing the Penn Biden Center for all the documentation there and the University of Delaware. Because as we now know, or we've known for some time, the University of Delaware has hundreds of thousands of pages of documentation from Joe Biden. They're essentially commissioning the Joe Biden library because he has called Delaware home for so long. Nothing wrong with that, but now we know there's multiple locations of classified information. Any DOJ or FBI who is doing things by the book would immediately go there and sift through those hundreds of thousands of pages of documents. Just on the sheer fact that we have now found classified information in 5 separate locations belonging to Joe Biden. So you have more than probable cause to issue those subpoenas to go and investigate those documents, just to make sure if we're to believe this DOJ's line drawn in the sand in the Trump administration, that, we just want to safeguard American national security. Okay, well, you can't do it if you selectively let the target of your investigation, the target of a felony, choose who his Inspector Clouseau is going to be. It's literally the trampling of the justice system before us, which is why I keep going back and saying that's what we need to focus on. Because if we're going to fix it, we need to focus on the behavior of the FBI and DOJ and put aside, Joe Biden as a target.
Biden for monthly rent. First of all, that's a number for monthly rent. That's pretty wild, right? But at the same time, so this is also the amount that is the same number that's related to this business venture that the Biden family had with CEFC, that's China Energy, right? This is one of these areas that came out from the Hunter Biden laptop and actually the specific deal that Tony Bobulinski was talking about when he was citing the big guy. So again, you always say there's no coincidences. What does this number say at all? Because a lot of people are talking about it.
There are no coincidences, and I always say follow the money, which is why we called for the subpoenaing of the banking records of not just the law firm, but everyone involved in this matter. Is no coincidence. The exact amount to the dollar. It's not like they rounded up or down. It's literally that amount. So the question has to be asked, and I guess it won't be asked by DOJ or FBI, but by the Oversight Committee. Why? Are they going to subpoena Hunter Biden and bring him in and say, who's responsible for this money? Where did it come from? Why did you pay your dad that much in rent? What are the ties to the company that Tony Bobulinski talked about? And then they could probably bring in Tony again and talk about those matters. But it's another problem that directly ties this family to the CCP, which has been a matter that's been going on for years and under investigation, and we don't know the results of it. So the best way, the easiest way, just subpoena the documents and the banking records. And then I think the biggest thing that no one's really talking about in relation to this issue is President Biden's been very public about putting his tax returns out there. Well, if his son was paying him $50,000 a month, and my math is terrible, but that's a lot of money a year, north of $500,000. Why didn't President Biden declare that as rental income in his tax returns? He's always gone out there and attacked President Trump for his tax returns and not being disclosed. Well, it's actually a crime to fail to report that type of income on your tax return. So is anyone going to be looking at that? To me, that's the angle from a law enforcement perspective, from an IRS Treasury perspective. How did anyone miss that, and why? It's a whole other investigation. Some other committee, maybe the Ways and Means Committee in Congress, can take a look at it.
Well, Cash, I think it's time for our shout out.
It is.
Bob Bauer said some of the items date all the way back to when Biden served in the Senate. Agents also found some handwritten notes from Biden's time as vice president. He has directed his lawyers to cooperate with the Justice Department as the investigation continues. Turning to Atlanta now, where a protest quickly turned violent late last night. Take a look.
Oh my God. Fucking idiots.
Terrifying scene there. A police cruiser was set on fire during a demonstration downtown yesterday. The protesters say they're upset about a deadly attack that happened at a separate protest on Wednesday. One person died and another shot a Georgia State trooper. The demonstrators have spent months protesting the proposed building of a police training facility. Agents with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation say they even found explosive devices and weapons while removing 25 campsites around the property on Wednesday. And police say at least 7 people have been arrested so far on charges of domestic terrorism. We're learning new details.
They shot back, killing that protester, and now the GBI says they discovered a gun. The agency says investigators found that gun on a protester. A silent memorial for an activist shot and killed during a law enforcement raid at the site of a planned training center for Atlanta police.
I wanted to be with other people who are feeling the same way for the same reasons.
Dozens of people lit candles for Manuel Teran, who friends call Tortuguita.
I am not for a violent movement. I do not agree with a protester instigating police. I have seen that police have terrorized Atlanta forest offenders.
Law enforcement on Wednesday raided Entrenchment Creek Park to clear the woods of activists camped out there protesting the site they call Cop City. The GBI says Teran opened fire, wounding a state trooper. The agency says officers shot back, killing Teran.
We're dealing not with protesters, protesters, but were criminals.
And now the GBI says investigators recovered this handgun from the scene. The agency describes it as a Smith & Wesson M&P Shield 9mm. The GBI says ballistic investigators matched the gun they say they found on Tehran to the bullet that wounded the trooper.
Arson, attacking citizens, shooting police officers, using explosives, beating people up, then burning their car down.
The GBI accuses some protesters of attacking police, firefighters, and nearby communities, damaging property and setting fires. They've conducted numerous raids and charged at least 12 protesters with domestic terrorism.
Are they domestic terrorists?
I don't think so. What terror are they causing? Who's terrorizing whom?
Now, there were some calls on social media
injuring him, shooting him in the pelvis, and then the law enforcement responded by shooting back. The protesters who were out here last night say that they want to see a full, complete investigation to see what really happened.
Peaceful protest is not domestic terrorism. This is a chilling effect on the peaceful right of assembly, the First Amendment. Police murdered a peaceful protester.
There's a difference between protest and what's happening there. Arson, attacking citizens, shooting police officers, using explosives, beating people up, then burning their car down.
So obviously, difference of opinion as to what these protesters are doing. We can tell you that about 25 or so, maybe more, campsites were actually broken up as a result of this. And the GBI says it found the following. I'm going to read them to you. They say they found mortar-style fireworks, multiple edge weapons, pellet rifles, gas masks, and a blowtorch, all of which were taken in for evidence. Now, we're going to have an awful lot more in this story for you coming up at 5 o'clock. But for now, that's the latest from here at the DeKalb County Jail. I'm Mark Teichner. For Good Day Atlanta. Buck, back to you.
All right, Mark, thank you. We'll check back in with you later. Now, some protesters have issued a call to violence tonight in retaliation for their friend's death. APD released a statement saying, quote, "Our officers are on high alert, and we will continue our work to keep our streets safe for our residents, businesses, and visitors alike." Well, now
thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Courtney Bryant. The shooting happened just after 9 this morning during an operation to remove people from the area near the planned Atlanta Police Training Facility. Our Fox 5 News team is bringing you the latest on this developing story. Fox 5 anchor Christine Spiro is looking at the incidents surrounding the growing conflict. But first, our Christopher King joins us live at the site of the so-called Cop City, where these ongoing protests took a deadly turn today. Christopher?
Courtney, this is the entrance to Entrenchment Creek Park. Protesters would often set up food giveaways here, but some put up barricades. Those barricades are now rubble. All this after the GBI says a male protester opened fire on a state trooper. Law enforcement on Wednesday morning swarmed Entrenchment Creek Park. They cleared protesters they say illegally camped out in the woods on the site of a center for Atlanta police. Then the confrontation turned violent.
Someone on the property, as law enforcement came into view, initiated fire on the law enforcement entities, and they returned fire.
The GBI says a trooper shot in the abdomen as officers entered the park. They fired back at the suspected gunman. He died at the scene.
Law enforcement can't stand by while serious criminal acts are being committed that jeopardize the safety of the citizens we're sworn to protect.
The trooper recovering at the hospital after undergoing surgery. Wednesday's conflict comes after more than a year of tension between police and protesters over a $90 million center protesters call Cop City.
Police defend the forest!
Officers on Wednesday detained at least 4 other people, including this man. It isn't clear if any of them are charged in connection with the shooting. They claim officers attacked them.
They're demolishing the encampment in the forest. They're sending in drones and chemical weapons against free-sitters.
Many protesters have camped out for months in the woods they call Weelaunee. They say they peacefully oppose expansion of a police state into the forest.
We're dealing not with protesters, but with criminals.
But the GBI says at least some of them are violent. The GBI accuses protesters of attacking police, firefighters, and neighbors of nearby communities.
We have people conducting criminal activity, illegally occupying a property, but more so than that, they're endangering the community and the citizens around this area.
Now, state
in the face.
However, that female employee is alive today, recovering in stable condition at an Indianapolis hospital. Officers were in the building within just 4 minutes of that 911 call. However, police say one brave employee was able to move the victim into another room, locking the door and turning off the lights before Mosley returned looking for her.
Heather sees the suspect going out of the area, so she goes back in the room. The victim is in there. She helps get the victim up, gets her out of the room, takes her into another room, locks the door, turns off the lights, and hid behind some computer equipment.
Mosley was shot dead at the scene before he could cause any more harm. Evansville Police Chief Billy Boland called the unnamed employee a hero and credited her with saving the victim's life.
10-year-old man was a flower. He was a flower just beginning to bloom. But the LAPD, unfortunately, was a hammer. So really, is there any wonder when they treated that flower like it was a nail?
Powerful words from civil rights attorney Carl Douglas there. One attorney says this claim is the first step needed to formally file a lawsuit against the city. It alleges that the city failed to properly train the officers who ultimately used what the claim calls unreasonable deadly force. The city has 45 days to accept or deny it. If they do deny it, the Anderson Estates legal team will move forward with a state lawsuit. The LA City Attorney's Office and LAPD have declined to comment at this time.
I think it's clear now that we now have in our elites a preponderance of people who want to get rid of the people's role in our government. And am I being too alarmist? Because I think we're teetering on the edge of the utter collapse of whatever we have left of our sovereignty as a people.
Well, when you look at some of the wars that we've gotten involved in, and I know it's this kind of conspiracy theory territory, but in Iraq, Saddam Hussein was moving towards a gold standard. You saw in Libya, actually, Gaddafi was moving towards a more of a gold standard. And you're actually seeing right now in China, China is buying up tons of gold. Russia is buying up tons of gold. Why is it? Because you have these other nations who are actually being, we're looking at Russia as an enemy, and we're looking at certain places as an enemy, and China is, a friend and a frenemy. And there are other nations who have power and military who don't want to see America be the hegemony of the financial system. And so there is a war, and there's a tug of war happening. And the House of Cards that was built in 1944, where you had all these guys get together and they created this, the dollar standard. The other nations don't have this. African nations can't just print a bunch of money. When you see that happening, like in Zimbabwe, the country went under socialist principles. And so you're going to see, you're not Chicken Little. This is for real, guys. We are going to see the collapse of this, because this printing of these dollars is a house of cards. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And they postponed it in 2008. And there are those of us on the outside, maybe I sound very Ron Paulish, we are just ready for the collapse. And it's going to be bad. It's not like I'm excited about it, but we will never be able to rebuild and wake people up until the house of cards collapses and you see that it was never there to begin with. So I think that's where so you're not being an alarmist, although throughout the show you keep coming back to this sense of hope. And I think that it's a very interesting thing for us to talk about, because God is moving and doing miraculous things. And yes, it's happening in our government. It's happening in the grassroots. Meanwhile, we need to see also these things that are very serious, like a collapse of the dollar and an economic collapse, and how dangerous that is, and look at them at the same time. And I think we can only do that through a biblical, historical worldview of seeing how God has acted throughout history. Goes back to being self-sufficient. So you've seen the egg prices go through the roof. Get some chickens, guys, because the chicken prices are just kind of a little bitty taste of what can happen. So when we talk about being self-sufficient, it's not just because I'm a prepper. It's because I feel like it's the right way to live. I enjoy going outside. I enjoy planting things. I think it's God's natural way for us. But at the same time, there is a preparedness aspect to what we do.
Well, are we really going to be able, though, to break through what I think in the last half of the 20th century into the now 21st has been the encouragement of what essentially amounts to an abandonment of the spirit of capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
Because people talk about capitalism, it's all about money. No, I think capitalism in the first instance is all about initiative.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's all about who starts it, who takes the initiative. And whether it's taking the initiative to go out and find a suitable place to farm, or taking the initiative to turn an idea into something that's going to help people do their laundry. You are talking about a mentality that says, I'm not going to wait for somebody else to come up with it and then hope that somebody will hire me and give me a little money so I can go buy some soap.
Exactly.
Right? I'm going to remember how to do it, and I'll even teach other people how to do it, and then we can build an enterprise based on how to do it, and others will benefit. But the initiative was always assumed to be in the hands of people who had that intrepid entrepreneurial spirit, that intrepid spirit.
The divine does not consider it right for whomever is victorious in battle to become ruler, for territory to be seized by military force, or for the powerful to be seen as heroes, since killing and forcefully taking from others are involved. That is not the way of the universe, nor how higher beings go about things. Yet in the human world these are inevitable and accepted. Those are the ways of the human world, but they are contrary to the ways of the universe. Thus, if a person wishes to return to heaven, he must follow true higher laws and work on himself. Some people are content when they are doing a bit better in life than others, but such people are only comparing themselves with other human beings within this human realm, when everyone here is in fact living in what is considered to be the trash bin of the universe. The three realms were established at the outermost perimeter of the cosmic body, and everything here is made up of the lowest, crudest, and filthiest of particles, molecules, atoms, and the like. In the eyes of higher beings, this is where the trash of the universe is cast away. They thus regard this plane of molecules as dust or clay, and see it as the lowliest of places. This is the origin of the belief held in some religions that man was made by the divine out of clay. Man was indeed formed out of matter at the molecular level. When divine beings made man, they did so at the Creator's behest, and he instructed them to each make human beings in their own unique image. For this reason, there are the white, Asian, black, and other races. While their outward appearances differ, the souls within them were given by the Creator, and that is why they have common values. The purpose that the Creator had in directing divine beings to make man was to make use of man in the final times, when he would offer all lives of the greater universe, including holy beings, salvation. But why would the Creator have divine beings create humans in such a lowly and inferior place? It was because, with this being the universe's lowest plane, it is the most grueling of places, and only when things are trying and painful may a person elevate himself through spiritual practice and shed his or her karma. When a person, amidst painful experiences, still manages to keep kind thoughts, have gratitude, and be a good person, he or she is growing through it. Salvation is a process of ascending from low to high, and so one has to start from the bottom. Life is trying for anyone living here. There are the tensions between people when they are trying to make out better. There is the terrible state of the natural environment. And there is the fact that just getting by in life takes a great deal of thought and effort, to name just a few examples. All of these circumstances provide people with opportunities to develop themselves and lessen their karma. It is certain that going through hardships can help people to atone for their sins and karma, and anyone who manages to stay good-natured amidst painful situations and interpersonal troubles is going to build up merit and virtue, and, as a result, will achieve the elevation of his or her soul. With the arrival of modern times, the Creator had intended to utilize mainly the human body to save the many lives of the universe. And so the souls originally in the majority of human bodies here were replaced by those of higher beings who incarnated in them. With the human body, they could reduce their karma and sins by enduring hardship. And in this place that is devoid of truth, they could, by holding fast to the higher truths taught by God and persevering in goodness and kindness, achieve the elevation of their souls.
Fight the Lord. Hallelujah. I want to know Him better, and I want to walk closer, and I want to learn about the heart that was